So I just saw Joker Folie, Deux, and this is kind of how it made me feel. Okay, I I did it for the bit, but I wouldn't recommend buying dollar store makeup. It just doesn't work out. Another thing that doesn't work out quite as well as I would have hoped is this movie. So yes, I saw Joker 2 last night, and I have some thoughts on it because while I think overall it's a fine movie, there are a lot of missed opportunities that really get in the way of what could be such a brilliant movie because they do have strokes of genius within this film. So right off the bat, when the movie opens, it has a really cool and interesting opening sequence that I'm not going to spoil, and there's not going to be any spoilers in this video, but that opening sequence really sets the tone for what could be a really great sequel to the original Joker, and it does a good job, kind of recapping what happened in the original Joker in a way that's unique. And then the film, it kind of goes nowhere, which is the most disappointing part of this movie. Actually, second most disappointing part of this movie. The most disappointing part of this movie is how they underutilized Lady Gaga, despite her being a brilliant actress, singer. Like, she's just there's so much talent within her, and she's not really given much to do. Her Harley Quinn starts off very different from any Harley Quinn that we've kind of seen in the past, but as the story progresses, she gains some characteristics that we know of Harley Quinn, at least as far as her background and things of that sort. But she never really gets to become Harley Quinn. Her character is kind of forgotten about in the second half of this film. She doesn't have a whole lot to say. Her singing is amazing, obviously, but they chose not to develop her character halfway through. It's just kind of sad. Gaga recently released the Harley Quinn album to kind of promote this movie, of course, but also because she felt like that character was still in her. And I can understand that after seeing this movie because she doesn't get to explore the character of Lee in this film as much as she should, which is disappointing. One thing that I really did like about this movie was the fact that it was a musical, and for the most part, I think the musical elements work. Thematically, it makes sense that Joker is now living his fantasy through these musical numbers because he's in Arkham and he can't really transform into the Joker except for those musical numbers, which I think is a really interesting way of getting the Joker that we all want on the screen, but still making sense narratively without it seeming a little too comic booky. And it's just, this film is trying to avoid at all cost. That being said, this is also a jukebox musical, and those don't typically work, at least not for me. The only ones that I think are the exceptions to that rule is Moulin Rouge the movie and Mamma Mia the movie. I think those are the only jukebox musicals that kind of work. So I would have rather preferred have Lady Gaga. She did write a song or two for this, for the movie itself, aside from her album. And so I think I would have had her write a couple more songs, maybe cap it at like 5 or 6 songs for this movie. I think you would have had the perfect balance of a musical, adding that uniqueness to it, which you can tell Todd Phillips really wanted to do, but not over, frustrate the audience. Especially if you're not a big fan of musical, I would say this film might be a little grating at times, but it's all shot beautifully and the movie looks beautiful, and so there's a lot that you can grab onto if you're not a fan of the music. However, even the musical parts that I did like couldn't quite overcome my second biggest problem with this movie. So I'm trying to think of a better way to say it, but this film gave me blue balls. And what I mean by that is that there was so much buildup and there was no climax, there was no release, there was no satisfaction for the audience. In the first one, there was also a lot of setup, but those last 20 or 30 minutes were really explosive and really got the audience, to get their heart rate up and leave the theater on a positive note. But this film doesn't have an explosive ending. It just kind of fizzles out, which is really disappointing because I do think that the journey that they wanted to take Joker on was interesting. I know where they wanted to start. I know where they wanted him to end. that being said, they took us on this journey that had a completely different ending than the one they chose. And both things are valid. Both the journey that they took us on and the ending that they settled on are valid. They just don't mesh super well together. I feel like there was a couple of scenes missing, a couple of connections that we didn't get, and so it left us feeling very unsatisfied. There is a line in this movie and in the trailer where Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn tells Joker, let's give the people what they want, and yet they don't do that in the actual movie, which is very disappointing. And there's nothing wrong with, giving the people what they want. They really wanted to subvert expectations, and I think if you're subverting expectations, there better be a damn good reason to do it. And I don't think that there was one in this film, which made it so frustrating because, like I said, all of the ideas in here are great. They just don't all fit together. So those were my spoiler-free thoughts on Joker, Folie. I will probably be posting a spoiler review later on in the week as more people go see this movie. But if you like the first Joker, I would give it a watch. I would give this movie a watch. If you haven't seen The Wild Robot, then yeah, sure, this is probably the second best thing out there right now. So definitely go see it. When you go see it, definitely come back here and let me know your thoughts because I'm very interested to see what the general consensus ends up being for Joker, Folie.